The TUZ-16 Actaeon, a legendary Russian off-road truck you can find abandoned in the ice fields of Lake Khoft. The Actaeon is essentially a 1964 GAZ 66, an iconic truck built with the tried-and-true Russian ideology of simplicity, strength, and versatility. The TUZ-16 occupies a strange role of being a cargo-hauling scout hybrid. It has toggleable all-wheel drive and an engageable diff lock by default, active suspension. It can tow trailers, yet it has an autonomous winch. For add-ons, it has a unique repair van body, a 238-gallon fuel tank, a long log carrier front, and a loading crane and single-slot cargo bed that can be paired together. In this video, I'll be going over the facts and history of the GAZ 66, and using the TUZ-16 to complete some tasks, and helping you decide if it's something you should have in your fleet. I'm in Don, trying to help the Rostov administration repair the area after the infrastructure was decimated with the torrential downpour and following flooding. The port was destroyed, roads washed out, vehicles swept away, even the train tracks were damaged. The region is trying to set up a factory for Tatra vehicles to help boost the local economy. It was nearly done until Mother Nature had her say in the matter. The infrastructure will need to be restored before they can continue work on the factory. For starters, I need to get the old gas station up and running again. There was a shipment of fuel on a train that was derailed because of the storms. I'm going to use the TUZ-16 to venture out into the bog and bring them back one by one, and load them onto the Step 310 that's staged nearby. As orthodox as they come, built to be modified to fit a variety of roles, its ease of repair and low cost to build and operate led it to be a staple in the armed forces in the region. From Afghanistan to China, Cuba to North Korea, the GAZ 66 was exported by the Soviet Union all around the region. Nicknamed the Shishiga, which means Truman in Serbian, the first USSR truck to receive the state mark of quality. Over its 44-year production run, from 1964 to 1998, over 1 million models were produced. The GAZ 66 has a 4.2-liter gasoline-powered V8, making 120 horsepower at 3,200 RPMs, and 210 foot-pounds of torque at 2,000 RPMs. For a truck as large as this, those are surprisingly low numbers, I think. It compensates for this by being relatively lightweight, weighing only 7,500 pounds. That's something that constantly trips me up about the Actaeon. It's not a small truck, despite having the profile of one of those little Japanese K-trucks. It's nearly the same size, maybe even a little taller than the Step 310. It makes the Bandit look small when you put them next to each other. There's actually an interesting link between the GAZ 66 and the Bandit that I'll go over when the Bandit gets its time in the spotlight, but I'm curious how many people actually know what it is. The Actaeon made me worry at first. It's a very slow and steady kind of truck. Not getting stuck or digging itself a hole, but just slowly trudging along, occasionally stopping to make me think it's stuck and then getting itself going again almost immediately. You can put the balloon tires on the Actaeon if you want. I personally didn't, just because I'm weird and particular about which trucks I put them on. I got to the first set of barrels really without too much of a fuss. The active suspension mode on the Actaeon is something I really didn't expect. I was able to raise it obviously to help with ground clearance in the bog, but was able to lower it to prevent it from tipping when I was loading myself with the crane. Having the cargo in the back actually helped the Actaeon. Having more weight over the back axle meant more traction and got me out of the bog quicker. First barrels are loaded, and nearly half a tank of gas is already gone. Alright, on to the next one, I guess. The GAZ 66 came in many specialized variants, such as truck buses, ambulances, dump trucks, mobile showers, workshops, and of course, canvas-covered cargo beds. There were versions of the GAZ 66 that can carry an 82mm automatic mortar, and versions with canvas roofs and folding windshields that can be airdropped. In 1993, it became standard for them to have dually rear axles. From 1995 onward, they came with the GAZ 5441 turbo diesel. They actually had capacity for 21 passengers in the back, and a payload of 4,400 pounds, and a towing capacity of roughly the same. Before the introduction of the turbo diesel, they had the ZMZ 66-06 engine. ZMZ also made engines for the real-life counterpart of the Tatran. The GAZ 66 had a top speed of 56 miles an hour and a fuel economy of 7 miles to the gallon. Production stopped in 1999 when GAZ began producing the 3308, or as you might know it, the Warthog. And the Warthog, don't worry, it'll get its own video another time. The second barrels were not nearly as smooth to get out. I went for the one that seemed to be the most difficult to get to this time, the ones behind the tipped train car. Getting there wasn't really an issue, getting out was. First, the ground was too soft to use the crane anchors, which made loading a really risky situation. Then, due to the angle I was facing and the Actaeon's wide turning radius, I thought it would be easier to just back my way out, so I went backwards through most of the bog, winching most of the way. As I got to the destroyed road, I got pitched at a weird angle and rolled it. I was initially very frustrated, but then I remembered that I have an autonomous winch, so I was able to get myself upright and loaded fairly quickly, and continued on to load the Step 310. One thing that's very surprising to me is the Actaeon's fuel consumption. After just those 2 runs, I've already depleted the roof rack. Let's poke around the Actaeon's interior for a bit. For starters, this interior is very cramped. I had a hard time moving the free cam around in here. The first thing that caught my eye is this thing, where the roof meets the windshield. I spent way too long thinking about what it could be, and I even posted on the subreddit to see if anybody knew. It's just the windshield wiper motor. I gotta remember to not overthink so much. Most of the time the answer is really simple. I also noticed that only the driver windshield has the ability to be folded out. It's hinged at the top, so it folds outwards as opposed to folding down like a lot of vehicles I'm used to seeing. Also, I found it really interesting that all of the placards throughout the interior are high enough resolution that they can be read, and I was even able to use Google Lens on my phone to translate a few of them. The one on the passenger side dash talks about basic maintenance. It says to clean the oil filter daily, reminds you to turn the oil cooler on when it's hot, or during harsh driving, and tells you to clean the air filter daily and change it every 1,000 miles. I was surprised this one could actually be translated. I thought it was too blurry, but it actually talks about instructions for the tire pressure system, recommended pressures for certain terrains, and warning about not driving for too long on low pressure. This little diagram didn't really translate right. Google tells me it says crane, main, tank, additional, garden, and closed. So I have no clue what that could be referring to. The one near the driver's knee talks about where to drain coolant and where the engine will begin venting in the event that it overheats or the radiator gets knocked out of it. I really like that the devs went through the effort of actually modeling and texturing these placards correctly. It's a detail they really didn't have to add, and honestly, unless you can read them or you're like me and go through the process of translating them, would you have really known what they said? Would that ever have came up in normal gameplay? Probably not, but that's why I make these videos. I like exploring the little things like that, and I'm happy that the devs add these little details. The steering shaft cuts right in between the brake pedal and clutch. In addition to where the shifter is located, it must have made this an absolute chore to drive. The GAZ 66 has the nickname the Kidney Tickler. Just kidding, no it doesn't, I was just making sure you were paying attention. The 66's shifter comes right up to the driver's side, sitting roughly right where your elbow would be if you were sitting normally. Because the motor is mounted directly in the middle of the cab, the transmission is behind the driver, so the shifter swoops in at this awkward angle. Why not just use linkages to reposition the shifter? Because linkages mean more engineering, which cost more to manufacture, and means that more things can break, which is not what the GAZ 66 is about. Also back there are levers for engaging 4x4 and high and low gears. There's also a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher. And one last thing in this section, because it's getting long, the TUZ 16 is actually modeled with the proper V8, carburetor and all. On to the third and final barrels. Getting to the third set of barrels was pretty easy. I took a very similar path there and used the train tracks as something solid to help get the Actaeon there. I expected SnowRunner to throw a gimmick my way, like extremely soft ground or a random hole that Don is so infamous for. But no, I got the barrels loaded easily and took the road around instead of going through the bog, and crawled along the destroyed road until I got back. The Step 310 is loaded, time to get that gas station up and running, and good timing too, because the Actaeon is almost out of gas. The TUZ 16 Actaeon is a strange truck to me, and that I don't really understand why. Don't get me wrong, I'm always happy to have more trucks to play with, but what role is the Actaeon fulfilling that another truck can't? If you regularly use the Actaeon in your game, please tell me why and how. because I can't see it being good for long logs because those are usually cross-map contracts and I'm sure it would run out of gas by then. Just slapping the repair or fuel add-on isn't useless, but it's just kind of boring, I guess. Although the Actaeon's repair add-on is modeled to look like a Kung body, and that's cool if you're a truck nerd, which you probably are if you're watching this video. I feel like the only thing the Actaeon is good at is exactly what I used it for here. Retrieving cargo from an area that may be difficult or potentially dangerous for some of the larger trucks, but having that larger truck nearby to actually make the journey and make the delivery, solely because of its fuel economy, which in my case was unexpectedly bad. Just retrieving one set of barrels, I had already gone through half a tank. By the second run, I had to tap in and deplete the roof rack, and by the third run, I got out with only half a tank of gas left. And that kinda sucks because I like the Actaeon. It feels really good to drive. It's responsive and snappy without feeling like you're at risk of rolling it. I can see it being potentially useful in hard mode because it's very cheap to buy once you find it, costing only $15,000. So maybe you could have multiple Actaeons until you build up to larger trucks. But that's all from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.